There's a question that I get asked incessantly as a guitar maker, and it might be a question that you yourself might want to ask as a player. The question is, how do we know what kind of wood we want to use for guitar making? I'm going to answer that question today specifically in regard to guitar necks. The last time I did a video about this, by the way, was on Instagram, and everyone thought that I was talking about katanas, I assume because of my British accent. Sorry to disappoint any Japanese sword fans, but I am in fact talking about guitar necks. I'm going to start with a bit of terminology, a bit of science to bring you out of the dark. I really don't like it in my industry when people start throwing really complicated terminology around and just assume that we all know what it means. The word I'm talking about specifically is quarter sawn. So, if you will, picture a tree. I know it's very lifelike and realistic, but I want you to focus specifically upon the trunk because that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, picture the trunk as a log, and picture that log in cross-section. We all know what growth rings are, what they look like. They look like this, nice and spirally, and they actually dictate the age of the piece of timber or the tree, which is actually quite extraordinary. I know we kind of take that for granted, but trees are amazing. The fact you can calculate the exact age by counting is quite amazing. I mean, with humans it's like wrinkles, but you can't count the exact amount of wrinkles, but wouldn't that be cool? Anyway, let's look at the different ways that you can chop a tree. Now look at this section here. You see within that section, all of the grain is going straight down. Unlike if we cut it like this, where the section has this kind of rainbow end grain. The difference between these two cuts is that one is quarter sawn and one is flat sawn. But as I've said, the one that we want for guitar necks is quarter sawn wood. Now, quarter sawn wood is actually pretty hard to come by, and that's because when you are a logger and you're chopping up your wood, to do every single thing quarter sawn would be a real waste of timber. You could do it in this kind of like star shaped going all the way around, but you waste so much and it's just not economically friendly or sustainable. And of course, people use wood for other things other than guitars. But why is a quarter sawn cut superior to a flat sawn or rift sawn cut when it comes to guitar making? Well, of course, wood is a living thing, and much like every other organism in the universe, it does respond well and not so well to certain types of environment. Now, in any given environment, there is a relative humidity, the amount of moisture content present in the air at any given temperature. Now, the relative humidity for my guitar workshop is always kept between 40 and 50%. And generally, if you own acoustic guitars, you should probably try and keep your environment in a similar way. Now, that's all well and good, but of course, if you're a gigging musician, for example, you are not going to be able to control the environment wherever you go. This is where one of the benefits of having quarter sawn timber on your instrument really comes in. If your guitar starts to expand and contract, and you might actually notice this if you have ever picked up your guitar after a while of not playing it, and suddenly your frets feel a bit sharper than usual. That's because your neck or your fretboard has slightly just shrunk, revealing the metal of the frets. So you might have had that happen to you, but that is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if your neck is quarter sawn, that movement will happen in the timber in dimensional proportion. That is to say, all of the wood is nice and linear, and it moves in the same direction every time, causing the least disruption to your instrument. The second benefit to using quarter sawn wood on a guitar neck is purely because of the structural integrity of the wood. Think about it, if you've got a really nice straight bit of timber and the string tension is literally pulling across the neck, then it's going to be the best structural choice for your instrument. If we're looking at a flat sawn neck, the grain is not working with the pull of the strings. It will bow, it will do all sorts of funky things because that is how it is structured. Now, what you might be wondering is whether that translates into all of the instrument. Well, I might address back and sides another time because it does get a bit more complicated with that. But let's talk about the top. The top follows the exact same principle. Nice straight grain is highly desirable in top wood. I don't think I've ever seen a guitar top on an acoustic that hasn't been made with quarter sawn wood. Oh, by the way, I should say I am only talking about steel string acoustic guitars. Don't know the next thing about electric guitars, so apologies if you've been confused this whole time. I am strictly talking about steel string acoustic guitars, i.e. the ones I know how to make. The same principles apply with the top as they do to the neck. If your guitar is going to move, you want it to happen in dimensional proportion when it expands and contracts, which obviously reduces the risk of things like cracking or damage. But of course, the top is also taking an enormous amount of tension. It's got a bridge on it. It's only very soft, often spruce wood, so it needs all of the help it can get, and straight grain will really do a very good job at making sure it is the best horse in the race for the job. I just want to talk about spruce actually because, as I say, it is a really popular choice for guitar tops. There is such a wide tapestry of spruce to choose from, both aesthetically and sonically. I mean, you've got Sitka, Moon Spruce, Adirondack, Carpathian. It's just, the list goes on, there's quite a few. But you can also get really, really old growth spruce, or you can get quicker grown spruce, which is normally on a plantation or something. Now, generally, the closer together the growth rings, and this is something that has been debated on the internet, so don't bite my head off if you disagree, but my general consensus is, and my experience from handling different timbers, is that the closer together the growth rings, or the slower the growth, the stiffer the piece of wood. So in my instruments, I do tend to prioritise really, really tight growth spruce because it means it's been grown over a longer period of time. The reason it's grown so slowly is because it might have less access to the elements. It might be in a big forest where there is a lot of competition for the overhead canopy leading to the sunlight. And also what I heard the other day is that there are actually 2 growth rings per year, which I may not have mentioned earlier in my video, but the light growth ring represents the warmer summer months and the dark growth rings represent the colder winter months. I just thought that was really cool. Now I'm going to show you a real life example of quarter sawn because I think that's the best way to learn. This is a mahogany neck blank which I'm going to be making into a neck very soon for a Koa 14 fret guitar that I'm making for a guy out in New York, hopefully delivering it by the end of this year. And as you can see, it's got beautiful straight grain here, and on the end is the real place that you will be able to tell whether it's quarter sawn or not. Now, just to note, there are saw marks on the end here, which really is kind of annoying when you're trying to establish whether something's quarter sawn, because I, for one, when I was especially starting out, I used to think that the saw lines were the grain lines. I didn't know any better. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, just for simplicity, is just get a plane out and clean up one of these ends so you can really see. Okay, so as you can see, that is just really beautifully straight down. What a gorgeous piece of wood. I actually love mahogany just in general for working with. It just slides off my spoke shave like melted butter. And actually, speaking of my spoke shave, I really have to show you what I did to it the other day just because it brings me so much joy. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing more of them, so please do stick around and hit that subscribe button if you are so inclined. I'm also on things like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok if you are also so inclined. I would also love some suggestions from you guys about the kind of content that you want to see here, any questions that you want answered, etc, and I hope everyone has a lovely day. Thanks for watching.